Okay, great. Welcome to our Fear Forum. My name's Amy, and I'm not as afraid as I think I should be, or as I normally am when I'm leading these kinds of things, leading any kind of group. I almost always show up to a group experience with quite a bit of anxiety. I feel a little bit of it right now in my chest, fluttering a little bit. And how's everybody else feeling? Is anybody else feeling a little tinge of fear at all? Any little whisper? Yeah, a little bit? Teeny tiny? Yeah, a little bit? Yeah, a little bit. It's kind of always there a little bit, isn't it? That's my theory, that it's always there a little bit. Yeah, thank you for sharing for those of you who admit it. I think it's a big thing to say out loud that we feel anything that's not happy and sweet and fun and at the top of our game, you know? So it's a big thing. It's a vulnerable thing to say, I feel fear, I feel sadness, or I feel anger. So I'm going to just describe the flow of how it's going to go today. You guys are going to be making your fear signs. Feel free to start right now. Lily, I know you're outside, but if you have even just like a little post-it or the back of an envelope, or maybe you actually have some real art supplies, feel free to write. You're just going to write the word fear, and you can make it as fancy or as plain as you'd like. So you can be doing that now. Just go ahead and mute people a little bit. I'm going to introduce the facilitators, or we are going to introduce ourselves. It's me and Diane and Grace. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the science, the neurobiology of fear, and then we'll open it up for open forum sharing where people will be just expressing fears. That's all we're doing today, is just expressing fears. We're not doing therapy. It's just an experience. How does it feel to express fears? I also want to encourage people. I'll leave that for after. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm going to pass it over to Diane, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about you and fear and why you're here.
Hi, I am Diane Wong. You can see my name, and on fear. Um, it's an important topic, and I'm happy to support the work that Amy is really the leader on this. So, but all of us feel fear, and we're all working on it. So I'm here to see what I can learn about fear and to support this and to meet all of you. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. How about you, Grace?
Um, well, I'm here just because I just connected up with Diane and Amy, and I've been to many open forums. And I just like, one of the things is I like doing open forums, and I don't mind talking. But one of the fears I have is talkative enough as I am. I was afraid of being just making an idiot of myself on this forum, and just not doing it right and being judged. So that's one of my big fears.
Yeah.
Just what will people think of me? And um, so that's maybe just what I would say. There's something else. I've just gone a little bit blank now. I just have a general fear, which I spoke about earlier when we were, a couple of us were, Diane and Amy and myself were preparing, and before we came on, would be just a fear of falling into space, falling into nothingness. And we were connecting that with a place where there's no division, where everything is one. It's like falling into oneness. And I have no visualization of that, but I'm afraid of it. But it's also somehow it's a recurring thing in my pattern in my life since 1995. This falling into, actually since I was a small child. I had an experience when I was about 10. So this has been nearly a life myth for me. falling into space. I find it terrifying, but it's following me, so it must be for me.
Yeah. Thanks, Grace, for sharing so personally. And I also wanted to say, I bet some of us can relate to what you said about fear of being in groups and making a fool of ourselves and saying the wrong thing or hurting somebody's feelings. Can anybody relate to that? Just being in a group and saying something and being, having people judge you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you both for being here and supporting me. This is totally my baby. I have been so interested in open forums and making open forums happen. I'm so interested in group work and getting together, especially post pandemic, and getting together internationally and working on things together. But this one is really my baby, the fear one. And it started for me. My name is Amy Palatnik. I live in Eugene, Oregon. I'm a diplomate from Process Work Institute. And maybe a month ago or so, I went on a walk with a friend, a very smart friend, and he told me about the neurobiology of fear. And ever since then, it's just been like really with me. I learned a lot, and I think I changed a lot by learning about the neurobiology of fear. I have this high dream of humanity being kind of spiritual and angelic and all of us connecting. And then this reality of that we're wired for fear, we're wired for threat, really made an impact on me. So, what my friend told me, what my friend taught me, is that the limbic system, maybe you've already heard this in my video introduction, but the limbic system, which is the oldest part of our brain, is the first responder when we enter any new environment. So, and specifically, I think we were talking about social environments. So anytime you go into like a group like this, or a new room, or even a room with people you know, just by entering that new environment, the limbic system turns on, and 80% of the receptors in the limbic system are wired for threat. 20% are wired for joy or for reward. So this 80% is testing, am I safe? It's feeling, 80% of us is worried that we may not be safe, and only 20% is looking for something that might be fulfilling or yummy for us. And this is socially. This is what happens socially. And for me, this was a huge aha, because I didn't realize that it had been going on like that in me so much, or that it was so common, that it was universal, actually, that it's wired into us to be afraid of each other. It was so impactful for me to recognize this and to start considering that for myself. And it helped me with self-love, actually. It helped me calm down a little bit. It helped me normalize that little bit of fear, which I'm calling secondary fear. I think that in process work language, primary fears are when we can say, like, I'm afraid, I'm afraid that I'm going to get hit by that. I'm afraid of dying. I'm afraid of things that we know that we're afraid of. But but secondary fears are more subtle and in the background. And I want to honor the whole spectrum of fears and welcome them all here today. But the part that I'm really juicy interested about is this the 80% of fear in the background that's kind of always there around social experiences. And also this piece that, as far as the limbic system is concerned, danger, social danger, is equal to physical danger, because as primates, we need our people, we need community. And the brain processes that social fear of each other, just as much as if we were going to actually physically get hurt. To me, this was profound realization. Okay, so that's my introduction. Does anybody have any like little response to that or questions? I mean, to me, this is like mind blowing. I just want to make a little space if anybody wanted to say anything. Angelisa, maybe? Yeah.
It's interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I found that interesting what you said about sort of primary fears, things you know that you're afraid of, and then there's all this subconscious fear. And so I'm wondering, of that 80%, how much of that is the subconscious stuff that's going on, and how much of that is like, I know I'm afraid of whatever, jumping out of an
Uh-huh.
airplane or
Uh-huh. I
so
mean,
that.
since it's because it's the limbic system and it's that so old, I think that this is all kind of the world of subconscious. We don't choose to walk into a room and be 80% afraid, just like that's the wiring, it's I think it's all subconscious would be the right answer. I'm no neurobiologist, but I think that that's
And
the answer.
I was going to give just an example that came up when we were preparing. I remembered, like, always, I was not always able to speak in groups. So go back about 30 years, I would be in a large group, maybe of a couple hundred people, and I would have something to say. And I would have to stand. It was an older type of meeting where I'd have to stand up to say it. And I would be thinking of what I would say. And I would just notice. I wouldn't have decided to be afraid. I wouldn't even be aware of being afraid. I'd be thinking what I'm going to say. But my whole body would be sweating and I would be shaking. And I would actually stand up without deciding to stand up, but I would be in a kind of a tremor state. And so that I could hardly speak. But it's like my body was absolutely terrified of standing up. And like that doesn't happen to me now, but it did happen to me. It was very inhibiting. Like you wouldn't want to have that experience.
That's how I experience fear. It's very somatic. It's very in my body. I can feel it. Same thing, Grace. I sweat, I shake. I almost always have like a little vibration going on underneath. I notice
Yeah.
so how I have that going on almost constantly. And I just wanted to say one more thing about my own personal experience, which is that in this last week preparing for this forum, I felt like I kind of took it to the next level and I really chose when I felt fear, I chose to let it self-amplify. I gave it space, and if I felt one of those little fears, I worked to de-repress it. Which is what we all do, is that we repress fear so we can look good on Instagram or or in a meeting like this, and and I just let myself feel it, and it was uncomfortable. It was really uncomfortable. It has this kind of, it would kind of amplify into an almost electric pulsing. But what I also noticed that when I it do that, when I let the fear be there and I let myself feel it when it was there, the rest of the time I was so much more relaxed than ever. And some of my bigger fears, like showing up at this today, were gone. So I really recommend this as a practice to start entertaining how often fear. Oh yes, great. Thank you, Vladimir, for showing that. So the reason that I want you to have these signs is that anytime today, and I don't know if those people who have their cameras off, but anytime you feel the littlest twinge of fear, even when somebody else is talking, if you just feel it come up in you, just put your sign up. You can shake it around a little bit if you want, animate it. But this is the practice today, is like feeling the fear, recognizing it, and being willing to express it. I just felt a little fear. And if somebody could at some point take a screenshot, if there happened to be lots of fear signs up, that would be fun if one of my facilitators could do that, or anybody.
Not good at it.
Okay, I had one other thing I wanted to say. Let me just take a second. Oh, I have a theory. I have a lot of theories, but one of my theories is that fear inhibits authenticity. And that it's really a big sabotaging, and that if we're all in this fear place so often and we're not managing it well, because as humans we manage it by repressing it, which we all know is not a very good tactic, but it's also subconscious and we do it, to work on it, to get through the other side, what we get back for ourselves is our authenticity. So that's the purpose. That's my big push underneath of why do I want to do this? Why would I want to get a group of people together and talk about fear, freak everybody out? It's to get to the other side, to get to our authenticity.
I have a contribution.
Great.
I have a
Thanks.
so, so so fear for me, it's an ever present. Uh, it's just ever present. So my what I've done for a while, I'm being conscious, not just of fear, but of any state that I'm in. I work on noticing. And so what I've noticed recently is I'm starting to be aware or notice. I want to notice the first inkling, the first, I don't want to wait until I'm blowing up. I want to feel, and that blowing up, that could be have started off as fear, but it ends up being something else. But so what I really noticed the other day, as I left the house, I came back, and as I was coming up the steps to come into my apartment, I could feel that first inkling of fear. And so and so I said, I noticed that. And then I said to myself, okay, why is it that you're noticing fear as you come home? And then it sort of flashed into me that every single day I get out of the house, I go out and feel something else. I feel whatever. But the whole thing is that when I'm at home, as I walked up the steps, start flashing into my mind an awareness of the things that I have to do. And so those things that I have to do that are kind of slightly eating, or more than slightly eating away at me, those are things that I'm probably putting off. And so when I recognized it, I said, okay, there's this fear. I don't want to do this stuff, and it's at home. And so that's one of the reasons every day I find I just go out, because once I go out, I feel free because I can't do the things that I need to do. So I'm just aware as I'm coming into the house. So it's not just the places that you are where you feel uncomfortable. I'm pretty comfortable, except that as long as I'm home, I know there are things that I need to do. And so that fear, it doesn't have, it's not straight out panic, but it's a eating away. It's something in the pit of my belly that says, oh, you have to go in because it's time to do this stuff. It's that kind of fear.
Yeah, yeah, it can be very subtle. Yes. So, what I'd love to do before we get to sharing our fears is just to take a couple minutes to free associate if you've got a pen or if you like to type, and just go ahead and just pour out everything that you can, like 3 minutes of a little inner work exercise of just writing about fear, just anything that comes to your mind. And I'll also name that it's pretty widely accepted that there's only four root emotions: anger, sadness, fear, and joy. This was also kind of a revelation to me to learn that. Do you need a little more time? No? Okay. Well, that means we're entering into the open forum part of our conversation here. So let's go ahead and pause the recording.